Now, once you master the basic 4C framework, there are some advanced techniques worth knowing that I think take advantage of GPT-5's unique capabilities.
What would those be?
First one is multi-turn refinement.
Whew,
A little bit of
that's a mouthful.
some jargon there for you. But,
Yeah.
this is just a fancy way of saying our old always be iterating concept. So GPT-5's improved memory means you can build on conversation. So start with your 4C prompt, get the output, and then say, okay, that's good. Now adjust the tone for a more skeptical audience or, add a section about budget implications.
I think that's huge for iterative work because rather than starting over each time, you're really collaborating with the AI to refine the output. It's like working with a really good editor. And,
Hmm.
this is something that we always talk, always be iterating. We always talk about it because it's
Hmm.
absolutely true. You should never accept the first
Yeah.
output as the only option. You just keep refining it and refining it until you actually get
Yeah.
to what you need.
And I think there used to be these two camps. One camp was, really good prompts, and the next camp was always be iterating. I think as we've gone along, Jess, our camps have combined, and actually,
Yeah,
you need to do both. Great prompting to
absolutely.
start with, and then always be iterating to then take it to that next level.
Totally
Um,
agree.
Another technique, advanced technique for our group is context stacking. So this is providing multiple type of context and letting GPT-5 synthesize all of it. But again, as we talked about in our little, extra bit, that's that prioritization. So also prioritized the different types of context.
So if we look at it from the marketing perspective, for example, you could say, if you're trying to build a campaign strategy, you might include brand guidelines, previous campaign performance data. That's a really big
Mhm.
one. Customer personas, also a really big one. Competitive analysis, market research. You can put all of that in one prompt, obviously prioritizing it. And then ChatGPT 5 will weave insights from all of those sources into its recommendations. So you're not just giving it a little bit of context, you are giving it every
Mhm.
possible thing under the sun that could be relevant and then prioritizing within that. And I think that that's something that you could never do effectively with ChatGPT 4 because the context window just wasn't big enough. So you'd have to choose between, the brand guidelines or the performance data. And obviously, in both instances, you want to make sure that you have that
Mhm.
because that gives the fuller picture, which is really what you want.
Totally. Yeah, it would have been really difficult to discern
Yeah,
between the two. It would have
yeah,
probably indexed more to one or the other. Um,
exactly.
I think another pro technique that, leverages GPT-5 self-awareness is verification prompts. Because it's trained to be less sycophantic,
Thank God for that. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the fact that they finally realized
Yes.
that it's not a good thing.
Hey, they're taking customer feedback into play, right? Which is
Sometimes,
good
yeah,
product design
sometimes.
sometimes, right? But because it's less sycophantic, GPT-5 is actually willing to critique its own answers instead of just agreeing with you. So you can
Yeah.
ask it to review the above recommendations and list any assumptions. And it will often call out blind spots that you missed. So if you get an important analysis, ask GPT-5 to check its own work, review the above recommendation and identify any assumptions or areas where additional data would strengthen the conclusion. I sometimes put this actually into my initial prompt so that it will show me that response afterwards and tell me, okay, where should I go next? Where should I iterate with my prompt going forward?
I love that because it just builds confidence in the output and it will often reveal
Mhm.
insights that you won't have thought of because you're biased in yourself. Your own experience
Mhm.
biases you or whatever the case may be. So it's a great way of, and we've said it before, but playing devil's advocate with the output that you're trying to get.
Mhm. Okay, I have one last advanced technique.
Go
And
for
this
it.
one is a little bit more experimentative. It's probably not something you're going to do every day, but at least while you're testing GPT-5, I think it will help you kind of level up or understand what's happening behind the scenes. And this technique is ensembling. So you run the same prompt multiple times and compare the results. Sometimes GPT-5 is going to catch different nuances or approach the problem from slightly different angles, and this kind of helps you see the reasoning that's happening behind the scenes and potentially the pitfalls by, how you're asking.
So this is like getting a second opinion from the same expert.
Hmm. I think this is especially useful for high stakes
Mm.
decisions where you want to make sure you're not missing anything. Um, And in kind of in a weird way, I know we're going to cover it at some point. This is kind of going into that synthetic data. We're starting to get into a place where the model is very nuanced and has a lot of information in the background and can, based on temperature, can give you different results. And you kind of want to see a little bit of that nuance playing out. And that can really give you some interesting ideas of where to go next.